Hello, welcome back to Casual Chatting with Christine, and I'm here with a special guest.
Hi, my name is Dariana Reynoso.
All right, Dariana. So, just for some context before we begin this podcast, do you mind just identifying your gender and your pronouns?
I identify as female, and my pronouns are she/her.
Okay, very good. So, we're just gonna get right into the first question. And it's basically, how do you think you're expected to behave because of your gender? You know, you identify as a woman. How do you think society expects you to behave? And how do you feel about these expectations?
I think society expects women to behave very kind of soft-spoken and respectful. And usually, I think that women are very judged when they are, I guess you can refer to them as more masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't like these expectations. I think I think it's important for women to have both feminine traits and masculine traits.
Right.
Like a good balance. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like society really wants women to be kind of this, this person that you depend
that's dependent. That's
dependent. It's like being your own person is like, as a woman, is not really looked at in a good way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree.
You know what's crazy? I was working at my job. Just for some background, I work at a hair salon, and I was doing one of my clients' hair, and I'm like asking her, like, how's your day, whatever. She's like, oh, like, it's going okay, but at my job, there's like, she works as an engineer. Mm-hmm. And, that job field is very male-dominated, mm-hmm. very white male-dominated.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so she was telling me how they're giving her kind of like these desk jobs, which are like this more like, she's not really hands-on in the engineer stuff. And she like said that she's been in the field for 20 years and everything. And I thought that was so interesting because a woman could have just as much experience as a man in a job setting, but still be looked down upon because she's a woman.
Yeah, I think that happens. I've heard a lot of stories like that. Like, that happens in a lot of jobs. And I also heard, I don't know if this is a fact, mm-hmm. but how, like, women get paid less than men and stuff like that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I heard about that, too. It's very unfortunate, you know what I mean? But, so speaking about men and women, mm-hmm. How would you define femininity and masculinity? And do you think do you think it goes to a specific category or binary kind of?
How people would define femininity is like you said, like dependent, and I guess, no, that's not the right word. I feel like, yes, soft-spoken, I said this already, soft-spoken, respectful, dependent is femininity, and masculinity is more, dominant, and I guess, strong, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. Do you think, how do you feel about, having that, those two categories? You know what's crazy is that, well, it's not really crazy, but interesting is in class, one of the first things we talked about was femininity and masculinity. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people kind of put femininity as this sensual, this showing a lot of emotion and just bright and light kind of thing. And then masculinity was kind of like this dark, assertive, strength, all of that. But when you think about it, some of the things that are said about masculinity could also go with femininity. You know what I mean?
Can you explain that a little bit more?
So kind of just because somebody is feminine doesn't mean they aren't strong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they kind of like describe femininity and masculinity as like the yin yang, you know,
Oh,
yin
the
and yang.
black and white thing.
Yeah, and then there's like some things that go. So I think that's like the best way to explain femininity and masculinity.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's kind of hard for me. It was kind of hard to describe feminine and masculine because even though I said strong, I do agree like it can go on both ends. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
that's fair. How do you feel? What are your thoughts on toxic masculinity? And like, have you seen that firsthand or like stuff like that?
Definitely. I have a little cousin. He's about to turn 9 in a month, and I feel like there's obviously toxic masculinity, but I feel like it's even worse when it's in young boys because you can see it from when they're young, when the first thing they tell them is like, oh, boys aren't supposed to cry and stuff like that. And I've seen it personally, like with him, like his mom always telling him like, oh, you're a boy, you're not supposed to be doing this and that. And I feel like toxic masculinity comes from a place where like, oh, men can't express their emotions or they're seen as weak, and that's more like for women, or like that's more feminine. And yeah, I personally don't agree with those, comments and stuff. So
yeah, I find it's so crazy you mentioned that because literally today we were talking about, like, we didn't really say toxic masculinity, but it is toxic masculinity. It's like how boys are taught at such a young age to not show their emotions.
Yeah.
And how much that is, like, it harms them all throughout, like, when they grow up. You know what I mean? In this movie we saw, it was literally like what we talked about today. Exactly that. It was this movie about how boys don't express themselves and their emotions and stuff like that, and how much damage that causes them.
Yeah. And
there was this one scene in the movie where, and I talked about this in class, it was like a teacher or like a guy, like a guidance type person, and around was these young black men. They were all, I guess they all just happened to be black. I don't think that had anything to do with it, but he like did this exercise where he gave them a copy of a picture of a mask, and on the mask they were write how they perceive themselves outside. Like, either some said they're funny, smiling, all of that, and then he wanted them to flip it and show how they actually feel inside behind the mask. It is interesting. Really interesting. It was so cool.
I kind of want to do that myself. Yeah. That's really interesting.
No, literally, it was like really, really interesting. And they wrote anger, sad, depressed, like in the back, and that just goes to show, like, it made me think, like, about the men or boys in my life and how they perceive themselves and how versus how they're actually feeling inside. Because in my family, at least, the women, they're always talking about how they feel. They always talk about certain situations and how they feel and expressing their emotions and having no problem in doing that. But then the men, it's just quiet. Like, the only things they'll talk about is about sports or like certain things.
I would say, well, I don't know if this is also toxic. I'm not sure, but my dad, he's very quiet and reserved, and he doesn't talk about his emotions very much. So like when I have seen him like cry and express his emotions, is so shocking to me because I'm not used to seeing my father like that. Right. And I also feel like that's another form of like toxic masculinity, that he feels like he needs to always, as a father, like he needs to always be good and okay and taking care of everything. But I don't know, me personally, like when I see him like cry or express his emotions, not that it makes me feel good, I'm just glad like he knows it's okay to let those emotions out and stuff. Right. So yeah,
exactly. And I feel like there's so many levels to toxic masculinity, but I feel like, but it's crazy when you see it in like little kids. Like, you could really
it's so sad.
You know what I mean? Sad. Like what you said about your cousin, he's 9 years old. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or like, you know, my little cousin, I think he's like 4 or 5, and he's very quiet. You know, when he cries, you know, it's always like, don't cry, you're a boy, or whatever. You know what I mean? But then it's okay for girls to cry.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. And I know, like, seeing it firsthand, I know for a fact my kids, or when I have a boy, if I do, I will not raise him like that. I don't think that's healthy.
It's not healthy, because then also in the movie, when boys are depressed. So when you think about depression, like what kind of I guess symptoms or like traits you would correlate depression with?
Well, depression is very different from like a lot of people like to say they're depressed and it's just like one day of sadness. I think it's like an ongoing thing. I know my aunt, she had depression, and it was like, even though like things around her, like everything in her life was going good, she still like, there was still something wrong. Like, it doesn't matter like what's going on around, there's still like, you know.
So like, how about like physical like traits, like, you know,
physical traits? I think it's like you know, when people are always in bed, they're not eating as well. Exactly. It's like the simple daily things that people are supposed to do that they feel like they can do. I think
right. So in the movie, they say not regular depression, but like people tend to correlate depression with people being, you know, not unmotivated, not being able to get out of bed, stuff like that. But for boys or for men, when they're depressed, they tend to act out. Because
really?
Yeah.
I did not know
they
that.
Tend to act
that makes
out.
Sense.
Yeah, because they're keeping all their emotions bottled in. There's kind of, I guess there's like a flip switch that flips, and it's like they just act out and they do things for attention because they're so used to not speaking out that when they're, and it's crazy because when you have everything bottled in, boys, I think there was a statistic, I'm not sure what it was exactly, but it's like boys are more likely to drop out of school at a young age. They're more likely to go to jail because when they act on their anger, they tend to go very violent on the wrong person or on the wrong situation, and that leads them to flunking out of school or like not doing good in life. You know what I mean? So I feel like that toxic masculinity, it's like a domino effect. You know what I mean? Like from such a young age, you're told not to show your emotions, and like that just kind of leads to this like spiral down.
I did not know that, and I feel like I kind of think that makes sense. I feel like I've seen that before.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm like, that makes sense now. Yeah,
like in high school, like you could. I feel like,
especially in high school, you know, in high school, kids are going through a lot of emotions and stuff like that. And I think there was a few people, I think, you know, did things for attention. And that makes sense.
And the boys that are more in tune with their emotions, they're looked at as weak or as more feminine or as like, but it should be something that's like normal.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, it should be something.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain. Like, for example, my cousin, he's like, I guess he has depression. I'm not 100% sure if he's like diagnosed with this, but he like went to a therapist and everything, and like therapy is not it's like a love-hate in my family, you know what I mean? It's like something that, you know, like most of my family members should go to therapy because they're crazy. Not fact. But like, they're like, especially the men, they never want help. Never. And it's like my grandpa even, like, he was sick. You know what I mean? He's still very sick, but when he got out of the hospital, after being in the hospital for months, they suggested him to go to a rehab center. And you know, when people think of rehab, it's like, oh no, but it was like for his benefit and, you know, for his help. He thinks that he could just cure himself on his own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think well, our situation with the men in our family, I think also comes from our culture also.
Yes.
Because because I know yeah, like when it's very looked down upon, like therapy and things like that, and they feel like they can resolve every issue themselves. They don't need help. You know, that's also comes from toxic masculinity, that they think they can get everything done themselves, when in reality, if you need help, it's okay to ask for help, but they don't, you know, they don't see it like that. So
yeah, definitely. Okay, for context, we're Dominican.
oh yeah, we're Dominican. That's the culture we're talking about.
So like, it's crazy, like this like macho man mentality runs very, very heavily in the culture, and I feel like it's very, very wrong. You know what I mean?
It's terrible. My my uncle, he used to live in DR with my aunt, and you know, when they lived in DR, it was a completely different lifestyle they had. He would go out and he was working and she was staying home, and he wasn't the greatest husband. I would say, like, at times he was a little, you know, he felt like I don't know if I want to. He was not abusive, but you know, like he was very toxic. It was very, very toxic, because he felt like, it's also another thing is like they feel like they need to have control over the women.
Yes.
And you know, and now that they moved here, it is completely different. He's completely changed, and I know I've had a conversation with him, like his brothers and all the stuff that still live in DR. They look at him differently because he doesn't act the same anymore. He's not as masculine as, you know, I guess he used to be when he lived in DR. Right. So
that's very interesting, actually. Yeah. It's crazy because, you know, like here the culture is obviously very different.
Very, very different.
Very different than it is in other countries and places. So it's interesting to hear that when he came here, his kind of like persona, I guess.
Yeah,
changed,
but he also realized, like, I think it hit him, like, I think he realized what toxic masculinity was when he got here, because he realized, like, it's okay to not always be, you know, the man at the house and needed to take care of everything and to always be the strong one. You know, that's when he realized when he got here, like, you know, his mindset definitely changed. But yeah, in DR, it's still not the greatest.
It is. And like my grandpa, he still has that mentality, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, where, you know, over there, it's okay to step all over women. You know what I mean? And I feel like in my life, there's a lot of women that are very strong and assertive. And they know their place, you know what I mean? And a man gets intimidated by that.
That's
you know
true,
what I mean? They get intimidated by a woman that's independent, that doesn't need a man to depend on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like even men in our culture, they'll look at that and they'll be like, oh, like, it's all fake or whatever, you know what I mean? Or they'll be like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, she's just doing that for attention or whatever. Like, she's not actually like that, but reality, that's how
it's true. That scares them. That it is true.
It scares them away. They can't take it.
They can't handle that.
They can't take being dominated, much less by a female.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It kills their ego, I think.
It does, 100%, because they're like, you know, they think, oh, a man is here to protect and to be head of household, and, you know, they're supposed to provide and work. Meanwhile, the wife or the woman is supposed to stay at home and take care of the kids and cook and clean and all that shit. But that's not... Yeah. That's not the reality. The reality is not that. The reality is women are allowed to work, to get an education, to get all of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially, like, back then, like, women couldn't even get a freaking education.
No, it was so bad.
You know what I mean? And I feel like now women are more out there. They're putting themselves out there more, and men cannot take that.
I think it's good when it's an equal balance, you know?
Right.
It's a balance. Not one is more dominant than the other. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like toxic masculinity goes with, like, when I think of toxic masculinity, I think of Bad Bunny.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, please go more into that. So I didn't think of Bad Bunny.
I think of Bad Bunny immediately because he is a Puerto Rican man. O sea, he's in the Latino culture, and he broke that construct of men not being masculine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He showed his feminine. He's in tune with his femininity, and I feel like that really. I want to know your thoughts on that. Like,
I mean, because I've seen like he I guess he does things out of the norm, like he paints his nails,
right? Like he paints his
there
nails.
was like I think he was like modeling with like purses and stuff, like definitely. I'm trying to think of like someone who like represents toxic masculinity, like they're toxic. I think like that guy the guy Andrew Tate. You know,
I've heard of Andrew Tate, but I don't know who he is.
Oh my god, that man!
Who is that man?
Toxic. When I say toxic, like that's the definition of toxic.
What has he
like?
done?
He has the views of like he's like above women and like
Shut up.
Like I can't like exactly.
I need to search him up.
No,
because I was looking for stuff for one of my projects and he came up a lot, but I didn't know.
No, he is definitely
what have he said?
I can't think of it at the top of my head, but like the few conversations that I've like seen, like, because he has like a podcast, it's crazy, like the stuff that he says. You need to listen to like what he be saying. It's probably like a compilation on YouTube.
Yeah,
because stuff he be saying is crazy.
Oh no, yeah, like I think about Bad Bunny because I have conversations today with my aunt and my mom about how they think Bad Bunny is gay because he paints his nails and because he's not this masculine, so you macho, like
not rude,
type of person. I'm like, just because he does all of that doesn't mean he's gay.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
they just put these certain things like painting your nails as automatically being, maybe that's just the way like he likes to express himself or whatever.
Right,
people
exactly.
Don't see it like that.
Like, people, exactly, like, they can't, especially in the Hispanic Latino culture, they can't stand coming out of the gender binary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because even the language itself, like, if you think about it, is very binary. Like, everything is like, everything is assigned a gender, even a chair or a table.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
No, yeah, for real.
Like, la mesa, that's technically like a feminine, like, way of giving a table
that's
a gender.
Crazy. I never thought about this. Like, that's actually crazy.
That, like, it is crazy. Like, the language itself is a binary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
So when like it goes so deep into the language that like looking at it like in the culture is not that surprising.
Yeah, it makes
sense.
What I mean? Yeah.
Because everything is assigned a gender. Everything. You know, and Bad Bunny, I feel like it was something new for us, not just like his music and stuff, but him as a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's so big because he's different. Definitely.
Exactly, he got as big as he did internationally everywhere because of how he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like, who is like that in
especially Hispanic? No,
right.
Especially Hispanic, that's very rare. Because like, very, very rare.
I feel like for the first time, people were allowed to separate him as an artist and his music. You know what I mean? I feel like because his music is so good, people don't want to stop listening to him because he does all this feminine stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Speaking of genders, how many genders do you think there are in this world? This is a very controversial question.
Okay, before I answer this question, I just want to say I'm very uneducated on this topic. Very uneducated. I know there's male, female.
Okay.
And I know there's people that identify as other things that I don't really know. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say 2 for now because I'm unsure of the other ones. Yeah.
That's fair. Have you heard of intersexuality?
No, I've never heard of that.
So intersexuality is kind of like it's when people are born with both genders. Kind of like for example, like they might have an ovaries, like a female, but have a penis.
Wait, that happens?
Yeah.
How have I never heard of that? Oh my God, in my life. Are you serious?
Bro, yes. Or like they'll have an enlarged clit that looks like a penis, kind of. Or like they'll have a vagina but have no ovaries.
Are you serious?
Bro, yes. How do you not know? I'm concerned.
I've never...
You need to take a gender class.
I never knew that. Oh
yes.
my God.
So like, people think it's kind of considered like a third gender.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, because like they can't identify as male, like biologically.
Yeah, they can't.
They're basically both. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, and like,
is that like that? That's very rare, right? Like very rare.
I don't think. I forgot that like how rare. I don't think it's that rare, honestly.
I did not know that.
I really don't think so. That's why like people kind of think it's like the third gender, like, you know, I feel like because intersectionality, as you like could tell, since they didn't really know that much about it, can be forgotten. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think more because I've never heard anybody talk about that ever.
So like back then, what they would do is babies that were born intersex, they would kind of see what they have more of
and determine it,
and then do surgery on the baby to kind of finalize the gender. What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't agree. I don't know. I mean I honestly think a baby can't make a decision for themselves. Right. Obviously not. But I would much rather the person, like, later on in life, when they, whatever they feel, you know, then they decide if they want to have surgery. Or maybe they're okay with the way that they were born with, you know, different things.
Genitals, yeah.
Genitals,
right.
Yeah. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's okay.
Yeah, that was definitely a discussion in class, how it's very like invasive. You know what I mean? As a baby, like, okay, people might think like a baby can't think for themselves or whatever, but then like think about in the future, you know what I mean? You might have made surgery for them to like look more like one gender, but it's like they're biologically not like, I don't know how to explain it, like they might physically look like a gender, but inside they might not feel
like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because there was this one story we read about in class, and it was about these twin boys. And one of the twin boys, they were like really little, like a couple months old, I think, and they weren't circumcised. One of the babies had trouble peeing because sometimes the foreskin grows a little too much, or like there's no hole for them to pee, so they will have to get a circumcision. So the mother took that one twin that needed it to get the circumcision. There was a malpractice with the surgery and ended up burning the entire wee-wee off.
How do you mess up that bad?
I don't know. It's bad. It was really, when I read that, I was like, it kind of described it as like a thread. Like there was a thread. Yes.
I would be so mad.
If I was the mom, all hell would have broke loose. I'm going crazy. Bro.
Yeah.
I'm airing this.
No, seriously though. How do you mess up that bad?
There's no way. Anyways. So the brilliant doctor, I think his name was Dr. Money. Very...
Dr. Money?
Yes, as you can, it's very fitting because okay, I'm gonna go back into that. But what he did was, he was like, all right. To put it into short terms, he was like, all right, since he doesn't have a penis anymore, we're gonna make you a woman.
No.
A girl. So he gave him a vagina.
And he thought he fixed all problems.
He thought he ate that up. And he didn't. He didn't eat anything up. And, you know,
Wow.
this was, like, the first of its time. Like, I don't think anybody has ever done something like this for that time. You know what I mean? And, you know, he did a whole case on it. He essentially told the parents to raise this child as if it was a girl instead of a boy.
Wow.
And, you know, he did test studies, like, with the twins, because he thought that because they were twins, they were essentially the same person. And since one was changed, he could do the experiment. You know what I mean?
That's so crazy.
So he would do experiments on them because it was sick. Because they were little kids, you know what I mean?
So they ended up raising...
They ended up raising the twin as a girl. And when, you know, he grew up, very sad story, he ended up killing himself. They both ended up killing themselves, the twins.
This is so bad.
It's so sad. But that just goes to show, like, the extent people went to really keep the binary going. You know what I mean? Like, they wanted so bad to... You have to... It's like, you have to be either a boy or a girl to be accepted into society. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry. I'm speechless. Like, that is so sad.
Mm-hmm.
That is so bad. He must have done that on purpose.
I think it was for money.
Yeah, he had to.
Because he probably thought, oh, nobody has ever done this before.
And he just took advantage.
He wanted all the money. That's why his name is Dr. Money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
That makes sense.
It's tough, you know, like, hearing stories like that, you know what I mean? Like, how much gender...
The importance of it. And
the importance of it in this... Because why is it so important? Why do you have to be in one category? I'm
trying to think of, like, what could have been another resolution that he could have came to. But if it was up to a thread,
I think maybe he could have built a new penis, maybe. Using, like, skin from other places. But he wanted to be different so bad.
No. He wanted to be unique and all. And
he wanted to stand out. He wanted to be that one doctor that came up with the answer to life. Like, you just ended up causing so much damage and so much pain to this family. You know what I mean? And that's another thing with corrupt healthcare. Don't even get me started on that. We could talk about that later on. But, yeah, like...
I'm surprised that their parents agreed to, like...
I think they just didn't... I don't know. I guess they just weren't educated.
I mean, I guess it would be a little more complicated when he already did that surgery on the twin and then to start raising that twin like a boy as if... I don't know.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's a difficult situation.
It was very difficult, and it was... You should read it. It's really interesting.
No, yeah. I think I want to read that because...
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But going on to categories and stuff, how do you feel about labels?
Labeling what?
Like, labels, like people being labeled as, you know, like you're gay or like lesbian is...
I mean...
Do you think labels are harmful, or do you think they're needed in society?
I don't see them as harmful. I think it just gives other people more clarity, and, you know, it lets other people know, like, boundaries that they need to respect, you know. Mm-hmm. If, you know, they're gay or they're straight or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't see them as harmful, personally.
Okay, I agree. I feel like labels, if you want to use labels, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. But I feel like labels are necessary in the sense that if you don't want to be disrespected or like misgendered or like stuff like that.
Yeah, it makes it clear so nobody, you know, crosses the line.
Exactly. Obviously, we know there's a gender binary and we know about stuff like that. Do you have like any experience where you've been treated differently because you're a woman? Or like, is there like a specific?
Let me think.
I kind of want to touch back on the topic of labels. I feel like that's very important. You know, I feel like, I mean, in this society, a lot of people use labels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To kind of identify themselves, you know. And I feel like there's so many labels that you can put yourself in. But I wanted to ask you, like, have you ever been mislabeled or like you know?
I wouldn't say exactly mislabeled, but I have experience when I was younger. I had a very close friend, and me and her were friends for a very long time, and it ended up being that, you know, she had developed feelings for me. But since I was so young at the time, I didn't...
Add some what's your sexuality?
At the time? I'm straight. I'm straight, guys. I'm straight, by the way. The whole time, I've been straight this whole time. I'm sorry. Okay, let me go back. So I've always been straight. But she had expressed to me that she had more feelings for me. And I was very young, and I felt bad at the way I approached things, because obviously I didn't know how to handle it, and I was confused. I was very confused. And I think that time, like, when it comes to labels and stuff, like, I made it clear, like, I let her know, like, I'm not into women. And I think that was, you know, simple things like that, like, it made her understand, like, okay, now maybe I should, you know, not, you know, continue this or try to pursue this or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why I really do agree, like, labels are very important, because I know that if she would have continued, it would have made me feel very uncomfortable, especially since I was, like, 13 or 12 at the time, or I think it was younger, actually.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was like, what, middle school?
Yeah, I was like, probably
like almost, no, like,
I was like 11 or 12.
11 or 12.
Yeah, I was like 11 or 12, and especially like, so that was like the first time I ever experienced something like that. And I feel bad of the way, I feel like it's also important the way other people approach it. I think I ended up not talking to her at all anymore, mm-hmm. and I felt really bad about that.
Right. But you were young, like, you didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know how to approach the situation. So
how would you approach it now?
Now I feel like also there's signs, like, you can take hints from the beginning. People don't just come out of nowhere and say those things to you. Mm-hmm. It's important to take the signs and to let people know from the jump, like, oh, you know, I just want to be friends. I don't want to, you know, if they give you, like, you know, and I definitely wouldn't stop talking to her, because I don't want to make her feelings feel invalid. I don't have an issue with the fact that she's gay or she, you know, she likes women. I have no issue with that. And I think now, if this would have happened to me, I definitely would have had a conversation with her about it and just, you know, told her, like, you know, I appreciate you being honest with me, but I'm straight, and, you know, mm-hmm. I'm not into women, but I appreciate, you know, you being honest with me instead of, you know, just
shutting her out.
Exactly. Completely. Yeah.
That's fair, you know. I feel like because of that situation, you're able to learn and grow. Yeah,
it was definitely a learning experience for me.
For sure. And especially, like, you were so young and you didn't know.
I didn't know anything about gender at the time. Yeah. Literally nothing. I was in middle school, so I didn't really...
Or, like, just sexuality and none of that. Like, I feel like accepting, like, sexualities and stuff like that was really showing more during middle school.
Definitely. I think that's when you're, like, kind of getting introduced to everything. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in high school, you start seeing it more and more as you get older. But I feel like in middle school is when kids are, you know, they're just starting to hit puberty, and they're kind of they're trying to understand, like, their sexuality and, you know, what they like. Mm-hmm. And they're exploring new things. So, yeah.
Exactly. All right, Dariana. Why do you think boys get away with more things than girls? In the sense, like, No, yeah. Why?
I think there's this belief that like girls need to be like more responsible and more like I know like more mature. That's the word. I think girls need to be more mature, and I think that's the reason why boys get away with a lot more things than girls. Because I know, like me personally, in my family, when it comes to like me and my brother, my parents always tell me like I matured way faster than my brother. So when I would act out and do things that were, you know, a little bit bad, they were not okay. Mm-hmm. I definitely got scolded more than what my brother would have. Because I'm supposed to be, you know, I'm a girl and I need to be, you know.
No, I don't. No. I definitely agree with you. I feel like when I was younger, I grew up with my cousin, and we're the same age. We grew up together. But I always felt like he could do things and get away with it, but when I would do it, it was seen as like, oh, unladylike, or like stuff like that. You know what I mean? I feel like they just sort of expect boys to act out and to be dumb and, you know, do dumb things. But then when girls do it, it's like, oh no, you can't do that. You have to be a lady. That's very unladylike and improper of you.
And it was I think it's very frustrating, especially when you're a kid, because it's like, it's just normal things that kids do, but it's like, because I'm a girl, it's not okay to be, you know, doing that and stuff.
Right, like, I remember when I was younger.
Yeah.
When I was younger, my cousin, he wanted to... I remember, like, he would go to sleep later than me, and, you know, my mom would always tell me to go to sleep early, this, that, and third, but then, meanwhile, I would hear him play on his games and stuff.
Exactly.
That used to piss me off, you know what I mean? Because why can he do it and I can't? You know what I mean? Why?
Exactly what my brother.
It's so annoying, you know what I mean? I feel like it's more socially acceptable for boys to act out, or like, oh, it's boys just being boys.
Oh, boys just being, yeah. That's another thing that I forgot, that line.
Boys just being boys? Like, shut up. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just get away with so much more. You know what I mean? I feel like girls can't do shit. Like, for example, I feel like when you think about college parties and stuff, or at least in the movies, this is very portrayed a lot, where boys are drinking a lot and are throwing each other down and, like, you know, acting stupid because they're drinking a lot. But then if girls are seen drinking a lot, they're seen as like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, we know exactly what they're seen as.
They're seen as like trash, or like she's doing too much, or this, that, and the third.
I think that also comes from like, not only do men see it as that, but like other women take down other women when they see that they're acting like that too. So both genders just be
right. And even like boys can hook up, have sex with hundreds of girls, but God forbid a girl sleeps with two men back to back.
That is what gets me. I mean, in general, like, I don't, when it comes to dating and, you know, a woman, they need to be pure. They need to, you know, be innocent. They can't, you know, they can't explore and talk to multiple men. And obviously that's extremely, extremely unfair.
Yeah, and it's like, the boys sleeping around with women, and like you said, they want somebody that's pure. And I feel like it's okay for them to have had sex with multiple people, but then for girls it's looked down upon and they're like a slut or like they're a whore and everything because of what. And it's like also the point you brought up about women bringing down other women when it comes to that.
Yes.
I feel like that is seen a lot, and I feel like that's not really talked about. You know what I mean?
No, it's extremely, extremely common. And I think,
yeah, so with the whole women bringing down women, like, we're supposed to uplift each other, and I feel like sometimes we get caught up in this boy, like, men kind of
I know exactly what you mean. I feel like,
you know what I mean?
Especially like that's seen a lot in young girls, like high school and stuff. You can see it's a lot of drama, and it revolves around men who truly they don't even care. So I don't know why.
Literally, I feel like you always in high school, like you always see girls fighting over boys and stuff like that, and the boys are just there. And I feel like they're giving them exactly what they want, and it's to be praised. That attention. They love the attention. They always want to be praised because, you know, they're boys, and, you know, it just shows their guy friends. Oh yeah, I have these two girls fighting over me. But it's like, it's not.
That goes back to like how it's so okay for them to be seen with multiple women, and it's so normalized.
Right. And then, but like the thing is, like, if two guys were fighting over girls, I feel like they would look at the girls more. Like, they'll be like, oh, like, she got these two guys fighting.
Yeah. And she might be seen as, you know, if she is, let's say...
Or, like, she'll be seen as, like, a slut because she got two guys.
Yeah, she's messing with two guys or whatever. But if a guy has two girls, it's like, wow, like, he...
Right, you know. Like, I feel like boys are expected to be womanizers and to be, you know, constantly with women and this, that, and the third because they're men. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I completely agree. And going back to me and my brother again. Mm-hmm. He you know, has dated around a lot, and he obviously, you know, he's about to turn 26, I think. Damn. So, you know, he's a big boy, and he's dated a couple of people and stuff like that. And both my mom and my father are obviously completely okay with him dating people, getting to know women. Mm-hmm. For me, God forbid, I bring one man to the house. Just one. It only takes one for them to, you know, obviously... So, obviously, it's very different. It's very, very different. And I don't agree with that. I mean, obviously, I don't think either men or women should be out here just going around having sex just to have sex. I don't agree with that. Mm-hmm. But, like... Obviously, if you want to go out and explore and meet new people, that is completely okay. Right. Doesn't matter the gender, or, you know, if you're male or female, it doesn't matter. And yeah, I think like if I were to tell my mom about the amount of guys, as if like I was my brother, like the amount of women that he's been in, she would definitely look at me a little different, I think. Yes,
and you know something I hear a lot in my household is that, like, my cousin, he's my age. He's whatever. And something I hear a lot is that, oh, he needs to find himself a girlfriend. He needs to this, that, and the third. But what about me? What if I have a boyfriend? It's all hell break loose. It's, oh, she's over here having sex and she's not studying. Yes. She's over here hanging around with boys and she's not focusing on her career and on her life. It's like, what's the double standard here? Like, what is I don't understand the point. You know what I mean? That is saying that.
Exact reason. Like, in my family, too. With my brother, my cousins, all my male cousins, they always asking, ¿y la novia? Translation, where's the girlfriend? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? I've been asked that, I would say a handful of times. And it always comes with, oh, I hope, like, you better not be, you know, talking to no boys at school, you know, you should be, you know, focused on your work, all this and all that. There's also this other thing that I guess this is just in the Dominican culture, where my uncles, they always tell my dad, like, oh, you need to watch out for her. Yes. Like, you need to, I forgot the exact word, but they'll be like, "Tú tienes que buscar una pistola or something for her." That meaning like, you know, you need to protect her or whatever from these men.
And you know what's crazy? That actually came to my head where in this book that we read in class about these balls. I forgot what it was called. It was
these what?
The purity balls. Purity. Do you know? Have you heard of purity
no,
balls? Okay, so purity balls are kind of like, it's this gathering of a bunch of daughters.
Oh, okay.
A bunch of daughters and their fathers, and it's basically their fathers telling their daughters that they're gonna protect them from having sex, and that, like, to stay pure until they find a boy to marry, so that the fathers can hand.
You see, I hate everything about that. Everything.
Isn't that the dumbest shit you've ever heard?
I think, especially is the way that they word it, protection, like as if as if I'm this is something that is bad, like having sex is something that's bad. I need to be protected from, like that. Right. It's horrible.
It's because why, like, I don't understand why they feel so entitled to keep their daughters pure, and why does virginity, like, why is having sex not pure? You know what I mean?
As if that's not something that's a part of life. Like,
it's literally a part of life. It's literally,
yeah.
It's something natural that happens and occurs to everybody. And I feel like there's so much shame in that, and having sex, and there shouldn't be any shame in that. You know what I mean? I feel like everybody does it. You know what I mean? But yeah, that purity balls is crazy. So I just feel like when you brought up that about how your dad is supposed to protect you because of this from other guys or whatever. My mom has said the same thing. Like, she'll look at me and she'll be like, I'll tell her, like, an encounter I've had with a guy. Mm-hmm. Like, even if it's something as simple as, like, saying hi or, like, having a regular conversation. And she'll just have this, like, angry face. She's like, no, he just forget about him.
It's like with absolutely anything. My parents, they have, like, I just know they fear for me so much. Like, when it comes to men and, just me exploring that, because obviously I'm getting older now. They obviously, they're gonna expect for me to talk to other people. I remember I wanted to be more open to my mother about, men and talking to men. And there was one time that I was talking to this guy, and he wanted to take me out on a date. And I told her, and she was like, oh, I don't think that's okay. And usually when men buy things, it means that they only want one thing.
No.
Yeah. So then my mom has always not kind of engraved it in my head, but ever since I was young, like, she kind of, my dad was the only person she's ever been with. Mm-hmm. And she, kind of pushed that mentality on me, like, you need to be with one person. Obviously, I would love, that is in my dream life, that will happen.
Yeah.
We are obviously in very different times, and they met in very different circumstances than me. And I don't think that's the way it's going to happen. So I know for a fact, whenever I do meet someone, she might not, accept it as much, because me as a girl, oh no, like, she, as a lady, she never did that. So for me to do that, that's super weird. Mm-hmm. But if my brother were to do that, it's completely fine. Like, it's okay. There's no issue. So
I feel like they want, like, in the past generations, they want women to settle down and stuff like that. I come from a family that, like, dating around is accepted. You know what I mean? It's more accepted compared to yours. You know what I mean? Like, my aunt, she's been with multiple partners, and she has introduced them to our family, and my mom too, including my and my cousins and stuff. So it's more accepted.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's always just that one little part that's, like, not okay. Yeah. You know what? Like, it just doesn't sit right. You know what I mean? With me, because of the expectations set in the culture. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a lot of hypocrisy.
No, it really is.
A lot of hypocrisy,
It really is, because, this story...
Because it might have to do with age, but it's like I'm 18. You know what I mean?
I get it, like, the age, like, when I was younger. Like, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I'm still a newborn baby. Like, 18, I'm still very young.
Yeah.
But, like, you have this, like, this is the time that I'm actually going to. And my mom always gives me the story of how, like, I feel like she's lying sometimes. But she gave me the story of how, like, yeah, she was never, like, she, said no to all the boys. And, like, when my dad came, he sweeped her off her like, sweeped her off her feet. Like, it was just a love story. Mm-hmm. And that's what I need. I need one man only. And if I go out or if I do things with multiple men, mm-hmm. It's just not okay. It's not okay.
It's like you're the disappointment. Yeah. That's essentially how they're gonna look at it as. But, I feel like to kind of conclude, I feel like, was there anything like in this conversation that really sparked you or that you thought was interesting?
I definitely learned new things. I would really, I didn't know about the I forgot the name of it.
Intersex. Yeah.
I never heard about that, and I think hearing those stories about those different stories definitely opened my eyes, and it was very interesting. And I'm definitely gonna look more into it.
That's cool. I feel like taking a gender and sexuality class is very important. I feel like everybody should take it. At first, I was really like, I kind of added it to my schedule because I needed a class. Yeah. But it ended up working out really good because I learned so much. It's kind of like to keep you woke on
I think it's, especially now that people are more open about their sexuality, I think it's important for everyone to understand, all the different types of,
genders and the identities and meanings. But I feel like kind of just to dig deep on where all these ideas stem from, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But and even if you do go deep, you just kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into it, because not to really, I guess I'm gonna go off topic a little bit, but I was having a conversation with my mom about homosexuality, and homosexuality is something either people accept or they don't, you know what I mean? And I feel like more in older generations, they don't accept it. But if you look at it, homosexuality has been around for centuries.
Yes.
For years and years and years and years. And it's sometimes, I think there was a time that it was accepted and then it wasn't. And it's just like, who said it's not okay? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you just go deep into it. And I feel like that's the point of classes like this, is to kind of dig deep and to really think about what everything came from.
It's true. It has been around for a very long time. And I might consider taking a class like this.
You should.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was great. Very interesting.
Yes, very, very interesting. So we'll see you back in the next Casual Chatting.